Whereas generally people don't know what they want to do. Most people you ask that are in a career now, is this what you wanted to be? Yeah. No. And that's why they say, study everything. Try and be as good as everything as you can.
Hello and welcome to Founder Stories, the podcast for small business owners. I'm your host, Simon Kallu, and I created this show not only to motivate and inspire, but to give you actionable strategies to take back into your business, shortcutting your route to success. Each week, I'll sit down with real and relatable business owners, uncovering how they've created a business that gives them freedom, creates impact, and makes money. So let's get started. Welcome back, guys, to season 2 of Founder Stories. We are here for the first in-person episode of season 2. I'm super excited to have Marc Silver, who is the CEO and founder of Murwalls. Murwalls is a street art company. Firstly, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Simon.
I know you've traveled a long way, so I do appreciate it. Just a bit about Founder Stories first, and then we'll get straight into it. For those of you that haven't watched or listened, Founder Stories is about helping entrepreneurs and business owners with real life actionable advice, strategies, tips, and stories to inspire. So for me, I really loved podcasts like Diary of a CEO. I still really love them. But for me, they're more inspirational now and less practical action. Mm-hmm. Most of the entrepreneurs on there, and Stephen Bartlett always talks about, the more people that subscribe and like, the bigger the guests can be. But as the guests get bigger, they get potentially less relatable to a business owner. So for me, we want to have relatable, actionable insights. So if you're an entrepreneur watching or listening, you're in for a special episode today. Hopefully today, Marc, we can share your story, just some lessons so the viewers or listeners can gain insight from that. And I'm particularly interested in how, when we had our initial chat, what struck me is how successful Murals has been so quickly, how it's really picked up, how people have bought into that without you necessarily even actively trying through marketing, just through the work that you're doing. So I'm really, really interested in that. So let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about what you do, what the company is, and then we'll sort of reverse back to how you got to this point.
Yeah, sure. So me personally, my background is graphic designer. I wasn't always into graphic design. As a young child, I was always into my art, illustration. I was just always drawing all the time. And if I was asked as a young 8-year-old boy what I wanted to be when I was older, I would say an artist straight away.
So you were one of those kids like my kids now, when they come down from breakfast, the first thing they do, and they were too shy to show you, like just before they wanted to leave, we started the podcast late because my kids were around, it's summer holidays. They both got out their favourite pictures and they were like, I want to show him.
Oh, right.
So they'll come down and before breakfast, they'll pull out the colours and just start drawing.
Brilliant. And that's
presumably
where it starts,
you were
really.
Like that.
Absolutely. Just always wanting to draw, sketch and everything like that. And, went through the years at school, and even at school, like nothing else really mattered to me apart from art. Yeah. Of course, it's important to have all your other subjects, but I didn't think I was very good at any other subjects. Drama, I was drama as well. I was into my acting and stuff like that. But my real passion was with art. And I remember just being really always very self-critical, very frustrated with myself, especially during like my mock GCSE. The pressure I put on myself was just incredible. And I remember just flipping out during my mock exam with my art teacher going, I fucked it all up. It's not going to be right.
You set really high levels for yourself,
really did.
Even at a young age.
Really did. And I had a really good art teacher who just kind of kept me grounded and got me focused. And done well. Got my A in GCSE art and went on to college afterwards. And at that point, I didn't know where I wanted to be again. Just wanted to be in art. Yeah. Went to college and studied art and design for a 1-year degree, which then kind of in the second year evolved into a broader art and design, which covered things from graphic design, photography, fine art, illustration, and publishing was the one thing out of all of them things I absolutely hated. Didn't like it at all. It was all,
by publishing, what do you mean?
So that was more like kind of page layout.
Yeah.
So doing a page layout and a design for a newspaper or a magazine and stuff like that. That was the one bit I just didn't like, and it was all done by hand.
Yeah.
My teacher was very old school, which at the time I didn't really appreciate. Looking back now, I learned a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
So I was doing everything by hand. There was one Apple Mac between the whole faculty to use, and really I never ever got onto it at all.
Yeah.
To the point that when I actually did go to university at Southampton, and I remember day one where they literally went, right, here's the studio, and everyone had their own Apple Mac.
Yeah.
I was like, oh wow, this is cool. And then when it come to sitting down, everyone turned it on ping, and everyone was just cracking on. I was like, I haven't got a clue.
Yeah, because you've not done that before. Yeah.
I hadn't done it. And
how long ago was this then?
I'm really bad with kind of times, but it would have been round about 1995.
Okay.
Something like that, 96. Because around about 2000 was when I had my first ever job in publishing. But I didn't really kind of feel like I fitted in because everyone else was so advanced on that kind of thing. And rather than kind of trying to learn and educate myself, I had lots of commitments back home. I had a girlfriend at home. I was going to watch football. I was going to watch West Ham play. I had played myself at weekends. I was only at university like 2 days a week. I'd travel backwards and forwards between Southampton. It was a complete waste of money for my parents' point of view.
So what was the degree? Was it an art degree or was it publishing?
It was in graphic design.
Okay, so a big part of that is publishing. So for me, this is
massively
stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of got through it, really. Looking back, I don't know how. One of my roommates didn't pass the degree.
Yeah.
And he was always working, grafting through the hours. And I just kind of left it till the end when I had to do all my coursework and got it all in. Blagged my way through it. I really did. And if you asked all the people in my class about me, no one would know me. Because I literally used to pop in. I said I'd go and play football, then I'd come back.
Get the bare work done, and really your life was outside of that.
Absolutely. Passed it. And then to the point when I passed my degree, I started applying for jobs.
Yeah.
And I had a interview for a newspaper company where they wanted me to do a test on Quark Express, which was the software that everyone was using.
That software.
Before InDesign. It was Quark Express. And I had a friend that had an Apple Mac, and I remember calling him up and saying, would you mind just showing me the basics just to get through this test? And we did. We stayed up all night just learning the basics. And I went for my interview, and it was just enough. I'm not sure if it was just that, but also when my boss was looking through my portfolio, he saw a piece that I'd done which was related to West Ham United, and he looked at me and said, "Are you a West Ham United fan?"
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how do I answer this? Like, it's a trick question. Is it going to be good or bad? And I said, you've got to be honest.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, I am. Sorry. And he said, no, I'm a West Ham fan. Stood up, shook my hand, and I was like, there you go, thanks. It worked in my favour. So I'm not sure if that's why I got the job or the Quark test.
There's a couple of interesting things there. One of my questions further on, but I'll ask it now, is it hard work that's got you the success, or talent, or a mixture of both? And it sounds like there was definitely an element of talent there, because you were able to come in and do the bare minimum, not really fully commit yourself and pass, whereas someone else who maybe doesn't have that natural talent works really hard, doesn't get through.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an element of that. You can look at that in other industries, right? And people talk about it all the time. You compare it to someone like a sportsman, a football player, who, could have all the talent in the world, but you've got to have the work ethics as well.
Yeah.
But you can get to a certain point. And I feel like I'd done that, and that was through my uni years.
Yeah.
I look back now and I tell people, like, I was lazy.
Yeah.
I really did rely on my parents in terms of, both my brothers had part-time jobs. I had the odd part-time job, but I didn't want to do it. I was really lazy.
Yeah.
I was really enjoying my teenage years, just going out, partying, having fun.
And in hindsight, though, do you think that was a good thing? Because I'd say it was. I mean, you got to play football. You got to go and watch West Ham.
Yeah.
Like, I've got season tickets at Villa. I totally get that. You got to live your life, and then, a lot of people, what I'm trying to say is a lot of people go to university and they're just university students.
Yeah.
That's their identity then for 3 or 4 years, and they don't do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas university was just a small portion, 20% maybe, of the rest of your life. And you had a continuation of all the things that you were still passionate about. You didn't sacrifice
Absolutely.
those to go and get the degree.
I think there's a lot of pressure. Like my eldest daughter now has just finished her GCSEs, and
Yeah.
the pressure I can see being put on her and other children her age. What do you want to be when you're older?
Yeah.
And I always look at it and go, I was so fortunate. I knew I wanted to be in art.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to be in art. So I kind of feel like it was a lot easier for me. Whereas generally people don't know what they want to do. Most people you ask that are in a career now, is this what you wanted to be?
Yeah.
No. And that's why they say, study everything, try and be as good as everything as you can. But I was so focused that I wanted to be in art that I knew that was going to be enough to do it.
Yeah.
So I feel very privileged in that sense. I feel that I was lucky that I had that and I had the talent to get to where I wanted to be. But now when people put pressure on people like my daughter, it's okay, calm down a little bit. Like, of course, you don't want to be too lazy, but I look at it and I go, I was lazy. I didn't have a part-time job.
Yeah.
I got through my university and I'm completely making up for that now to the point that I am a workaholic.
So it's almost like you needed to give yourself a bit of, like you need to with your daughter, give yourself a bit of space and time to work out what's the right thing for you.
Yeah.
And then when you know, then you go all in.
Yeah.
It's really difficult, isn't it? Because with my kids, I pushed Caleb because he's a very good striker.
Okay.
But I've realised now, which I'm glad I realised it, that it isn't his be-all and end-all. If it was his be-all and end-all, he would wake up and he wouldn't colour, he'd go out and do keepy-uppies because he knows that that's going to improve his performance. He's been into Villa, he's been scouted, so he's had that taste.
Amazing.
Some kids, then they would be obsessed by it.
Yeah.
He's got other interests.
Yeah.
He wants to, but he's too young yet, get a set of decks and learn how to DJ. He loves house music. So I think, well, there's two questions here. One is, well, it's not a question actually. I think giving her space and time is the right thing to do, and that allowed you to be fully confident to go all in. But do you think it's good advice to tell someone, find what you're really good at and passionate about and do that? Because some people say, forget about that, have that as your hobby. Do something for work that's going to make you the most money. It's
difficult, isn't it? Because there's certain industries, and you touched on it with football, and you can go all in, and we know what the bar is really to really make it in football, especially in this country these days. So there's a lot of kids that don't quite make it, and then they've put everything into that, and unfortunately they're a bit stuck. So I think it'd probably be a bad advice to say go all in. I did do it, but I fortunately have my career path has kind of evolved itself around it. But I would say it's always good to have other options, and I love the fact that your son's into DJing and doing keepy-uppies and doing the drawing, because then he can just find his way, and you never know, he might actually end up doing something that includes all of these elements, or just one of them, and then the other bits become hobbies, because we need hobbies. And I don't have many other hobbies outside of what I do, which is probably why as I said, I've gone the opposite way now, where I feel that I'm a workaholic. I openly admit that. I used to kind of always just go, no, it's fine. Like I'll find that in time. I will find that moment where I can kind of go, right, there's work. I tried to find the switch off button, and I haven't done it. And in the end, I felt that it's best just to put my hands up and go, okay, I'm struggling. I can't find the switch off button. But I hope to find it in time. At the moment, whilst I haven't got it, I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to do the other thing, the opposite way.
How long have you been running Murals?
So we started at the back end of 2019.
Okay. Yeah, so to me, you're still in that phase where, in an ideal world, so long as you're not sacrificing time with family, because you've got kids now, and that's the most important thing, you are going all in. So it's okay.
Well, the thing is I had a publishing business. I had a publishing business for 10 years before that.
Okay.
So it's not like I'm just starting a new business and I haven't experienced running a business.
Yeah, you can go from the outset, which is probably answer my other question. How have you been so successful so quickly?
Well, before that, when I was working for other people, when I had jobs, and I've only had a couple of jobs, because my first job, I was there for 10 years.
Yeah, so let's loop back. You got this job, both West Ham fans.
Yeah.
He gave you the job in publishing for a newspaper.
Yes. Well,
how long were you there for?
I was there for 10 years.
Okay.
I was there for 10 years. He was incredible in terms of the attention to detail that he would do. So in publishing, when he used to do all his markups and everything like that, he would zoom in a million times and draw the lines that would separate all the boxes and stuff,
Okay.
and he would measure it. He was OCD, like completely.
Yeah.
I developed that. I copied him, and I had that. And when I was training people up, I would make sure that everyone had the same kind of attention to detail. It's quite funny looking back now about where that kind of developed from, but I learned so much from him in such a short space of time. I learned more in my first 6 weeks on this job than I did in 10 years of education.
It's crazy, isn't it? And it's a big commonality with the most successful people that I had on in season 1, that they had we were speaking about actually the fact I forgot to put the lights on when I had Elizabeth Hoff in, who's now a world famous photographer. She used to sort of beg, borrow and steal to just go and be on shoots as an assistant to just observe the photographer. Lots of people think, okay, I'm a technician. Maybe for me, I'm an accountant. I'll go and start my own accountancy business. But they won't have the bit in between where they go and work for someone else doing what they want to do, or maybe doing something similar, who's a mentor, who they can learn from. And then if they do go off and start their own business, presumably after 10 years, that person would support you and also still be there if you wanted to go back and ask questions.
The best thing ever as well, it was a small company. So I was learning not only to do my job, but that kind of expanded. And over time, what was happening was the company they were seeing that I was dedicated. So I treated it like it was my own business, which had its pluses and negatives. But I would treat it like it's my own business, and on that basis, I would just be all in. And by the end of it, they were making people redundant all the time around me. And my job spec was getting bigger and bigger, to the point I was almost becoming indispensable to them. And I was getting paid so well that I was a bit trapped. I couldn't leave because I was getting paid well. And if I wanted to find a job somewhere else. So I was learning everything from doing the graphic design and the production to the distribution. At one point I was on a moped driving around North London looking for spots where the newspaper could go. So I learned everything to the point that I probably could have started up my own newspaper, and there was talks at one point of me doing it with former founders and former owners of that company. So as stressful and as hard as it was, I wouldn't change it for the world, because I learned every aspect of that business and that industry, and some things have helped me today. Some things have got no relevance, but at least I know how to do it. And I always feel that that's really good for anyone that runs a business, that they know how to do every job. And at one point they have done every job, and they can.
Because
I totally at some point
agree.
You need to.
Gary Vaynerchuk, if you're familiar with him, have you seen any of his stuff?
No.
It's an American guy. Sometimes has some negatives, I think, in his lessons around hustle culture and hard working, and he never sleeps and all of this stuff. But one thing he spoke about in one talk, which I always refer back to, which is exactly what you're saying, is you need to be in the clouds and the dirt. So initially you're in the dirt, right? Like doing everything. And then slowly over time, you spend more and more time coming up into the clouds, basically talking about working in your business and working on. But if you've never worked in the business and you only work on, I mean, people might counter argue that and say, yeah, it can work. Look at Richard Branson. He only works in the clouds. He never works in the dirt. But I think even then he does, because he'll go on the plane and act as a steward to see how that's working. Or he'll go on the train. Or he's done his 10 years running a student magazine or whatever it might be. Everyone who's successful has been in the dirt before they've gone to the clouds.
Undercover Boss is one of my favourite programs I used to watch, because you see that them getting their hands dirty, and some of them have never experienced that before, and they get to appreciate what it's like. And I think it's really important to have all that knowledge about everything in your business. Yeah,
100%. So tell me what Murals does now.
Well, so how that all come about? So I was in this business, had a business partner, a guy called Jeremy Alamazani, a French African guy, and we met through another publishing company. And one day he approached me and said, I'm going to set up my own business in publishing. Do you want to come work for me? And I said, well, actually, I'm thinking about setting my own business. Do you want to come and work for me? And we kind of both went, I tell you what, let's go away, think about it. We came back the next day and went, let's do this together. And it was brilliant because we were completely different people. We weren't friends. We didn't know that much about each other, although I knew that in terms of his ability in sales, working with him in this other company, he was absolutely genius. And he obviously knew what I could do in terms of the design and the production side of things.
Was that a conscious thought process then, that you thought, if we come together looking at like disc profiles or people's different attributes, that you together would have a rounded skill set for the business.
But only the space of 12 hours because we
Yeah,
had a
yeah.
chat and then slept on it and
Yeah.
the next day. And I thought, you know what, let's just go for it.
Yeah.
And I think it's always better to have two people doing it together. And we just thought, let's give it a go because the publishing company we're working with was folding and we thought we haven't really got much to lose. I always wanted to have my own business. But as I said, it was always challenging because you've got an income.
Yeah.
And that income was always quite good.
Yeah.
And then I had more responsibilities.
Did you have kids at that point?
At that point, my first child was born.
Okay.
Had a house, had the mortgage.
Yeah.
So you it's more risk taking. And I thought,
some people
let's go for it.
Different ways, don't they? Some people have their kid and they think, I'm never leaving my job.
Yeah.
And other people like yourself and like me think, I'm going to double down now and I want to be responsible for my own destiny. I want to give them a life that they can dream of and I want to be in control of that.
Absolutely. And I just felt that it was the right time to go forth and to do it. And I felt I'd learned enough from my previous business. I'd learned enough about how not to do things.
Yeah.
So I watched everything that they'd done and there were some great things about that business, but I saw all the things that they'd done wrong.
Okay.
The main thing that they'd done wrong was the way that they treated the staff.
Yeah.
And the lack of respect. And apart from myself, who that's just the character I was, everyone else was, I'm going to shut down at 5 o'clock and I switch off.
Because of the culture.
Yeah.
Is that, I mean, you see that in movies and stuff, don't you? Is that the culture of a traditional newspaper or publication entity?
I
Because it's definitely the culture, and like I worked in music in the finance department, and the culture there is very like that. Like we don't give about you. You're here to do the job.
Yeah.
I'm the CFO. You do what I say.
I think it's the culture of most industries. Wow.
If you can hear background noise, guys, it's like literally probably the worst thunderstorm I've ever heard in my life.
On the hottest day of the year.
On the hottest day of the year, yeah.
But yes, sorry, what was we saying?
Culture of entities and staff. And I was talking about that. And remember I mentioned to you I'm doing a bit of a daily day in the life vlog.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm just talking to myself on the way back from the gym and I'm trying to work out what's happened this year. And in our business, it's been one of the toughest years that we've had. We've still grown, but not like in other years.
Yeah.
And that's because we lost 2 key members of staff.
Right.
Then you have to look internally at the culture of the team and why you're losing them. And team, even right at the start, is probably, I think, the most important success or failure point in a business.
Absolutely. And actually, the business that I set up in publishing was called Square Rock. And Jeremy was he was a great person. He is a great person, but he was very tough on the staff that we had in. He needed that to, especially people in the sales, young people coming through. They needed that, what do you call it, like guidance and almost rigidness in terms of like their structure.
Yeah.
Whereas I felt that it was always nice to be kind.
Yeah.
And if you're nice to them, they're going to be nice to you back and give a little bit more. It definitely backfired in that industry for me.
Okay.
To the point that, we had a few incidents that happened because the way that I wanted to treat people really well.
Yeah.
And sometimes, so you give them an inch, they take a mile. It was a lot of that culture. And that was probably because it was in the sales side of things. But that was the way I was. It's the way that I am.
Yeah.
And that's why Jeremy was probably better at dealing with them than me on that side of things. But now that, jump forward, we're in this business with Murals and I'm working with creative minds.
Yeah.
I treat people how I want to be treated.
Yeah.
And to date, I believe it's working. I can't please everyone. You're always going to have different personalities and different things. But I would say on the whole that I feel that I've got a really good relationship with all the artists that I work with.
Yeah.
And a project we just worked on in Burnley the other week, people were travelling. It was only at 10 o'clock at night that we got the go-ahead for the project for the next day. And everyone packed their bags, 5 o'clock in the morning, everyone headed up north to Burnley. Some people coming from London, Bristol, a couple of people coming from Liverpool, not too far, but still, it's an early start. We was all there in Burnley for like 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
At 11 o'clock at night, everyone was still there working. Not one person was moaning. No one gave me any attitude. No one rolled their eyes. No one said, can we just call it a day and come back tomorrow? Not one person. And I think that, and this was only last week, and I've had a few moments, but that was one where I stepped back and gone, I've really got my team on my side.
Yeah.
And they were fight fire for me. They were run through hot coals for me. And I feel that therefore I'm probably doing things the right way. And I'm doing it not just because I want them to behave like that. I'm doing it because I feel like that's the way to treat them.
Yeah.
But obviously it's working for me in this business.
Do you think it has to be, or it has to start with recruitment as well? You have to recruit people who you know will go the extra mile and people who buy into your vision for your business.
Yeah.
Because you can treat them as nice as you like, in my experience. If you recruited the wrong type of person, they will still say at 10 o'clock at night, oh no, I can't do that because I've got X, Y, and Z tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Whereas another type of person will say, I've got X, Y, and Z, but don't worry, I'm going to move that to such and such, and I'll be there.
I feel like it's a case of, like I said, people do appreciate how I treat them, or how Murwalls treats them, but I also feel that they're enjoying what they're doing. You know, a lot of these artists, they're kind of doing their own stuff, but when they come with us, they can turn up and they haven't got to worry about anything other than doing what their job is. They haven't got to worry about the health and safety side of things. They haven't got to worry about getting the paints. They haven't got to worry about the design. Everything's all set for them. And also, some of these artists are working on their own quite remotely. All of a sudden, they're in a part of a team. So it becomes a bit of a social thing. So there's a couple of artists that actually are quite happy to work through the night because they see it as a social opportunity.
Yeah, and they might have been working for days or weeks on their own, and that's their socialisation. But another point to pull out from what you've said is you then don't just think about staying in your genius zone. You're looking to keep each person in their genius zone and not have them weighed down with bits that they don't need to be concerned about. Which I haven't heard before. I hear owners talking about, I need to be in my genius zone, but not my team need to.
Going back to my previous business, what I would do is I would look at, let's say, the competition or other industries, and everything that went wrong for that business or everything that people moan about, I just look at it and go, can we do it differently? And there were so many different things when I set up Murals, what I wanted to do. And it's really strange because I didn't look at it as going, oh, it's going to be hard for me to do that. I looked at that as natural. And even basic stuff like keeping the team hydrated. Right? They haven't got to go to the shops and go and get a drink. Like, I will literally go, right, I'm going to come back and make sure that everyone's got a tea, coffee, or a cold drink, or food. I don't want anyone to think about anything. All I want you to think about is what you've got to do. And the more stuff that I can take away from them, the more focused they can be on doing it. And I remember just seeing the appreciation and the gratitude from them, just going, wow, well, you're going to get us lunch, you're going to get us dinner, you're going to put us up in a hotel. And I was just like, well, that's just basic stuff. So I found that really easy. And it might get to a point where people eventually just kind of see it as normal. But if they're working for other companies and they're not getting that, or if they're working for themselves and they're having to do all these things, I think there'll still be that element of appreciative. But I wouldn't do it any other way. That's the way it has to be.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting, actually. It reminded me of when we rebranded, we had this little catchphrase, if you will. My branding agency will kill me for saying catchphrase. It was small changes, big impact.
Right.
So if you come to us, we're still a chartered accountancy firm, but we'll make all these tiny little changes to the way that we deliver your service, which will have a massive impact on your business. So you're doing these small things for them, but it has a massive impact because it all adds up. And what really matters in relationships is not money, it's thoughtfulness. Like with gifting, is that something that's thoughtful, or did you just think of that the night before and go and buy the most expensive perfume or whatever it is? You know, like with your missus, if you buy her a thoughtful gift, it's going to be much better received than something that you've just literally, run around Selfridges on the way back from somewhere. Which may have happened.
My finance manager Joanna, she goes mad at me because one of the other things that used to frustrate some of these artists is we want to work for other companies is that they'd do the work and then they would get paid when the client pays the company.
Okay, yeah.
And I was like, no, you've done the work. Why should you be waiting for the money? So for me, it was always a case of as soon as you finish that work, you put your invoice in. And if you put your invoice in 10 seconds after you put that paint down, my aim is to get that money into your bank account within an hour. And, that was something that was frustrating to her because she's like, I'm trying to manage the money here and I've got other things that I need to do. Why are you rushing to pay these guys? They're not expecting it. And I was like, no, because this is what I want to do. And again, builds up the trust, builds up the relationship. Because they're not used to having that done. And yeah, that's exactly how I do it now. It's not always immediately, but like,
Yeah.
you know, as quickly as we can do it, I make sure that.
Yeah, and
that
I've never
payment's
heard of that before either. Like, never heard of it, because obviously people's biggest concern generally is maximizing their own cash flow. What I'm getting from you actually is that you seem to have a head-on that thinks for your team in order to scale and build a good business versus primarily thinking about what's good for you, which generally isn't the case.
I think it's the strategy as well. As I said, I'm doing this because that's how I am. That's how I believe morally it should be. I want to treat people how I want to be treated. But I
and
also,
you're not a saint, right? You know that if you do that, it's a win-win, because people will be happy, you'll be happy, but ultimately your business will be more successful.
And that's my point. So short term, whereas my office manager saying, you know, we can make a few more quid on this. You know, if you just stopped getting the coffees in, you can make another 500 quid or £1,000 on this project, because sometimes it does add up. You think about that for a year. I remember hearing a story about British Airways once where they took, I don't know if this is true or not, but they said they took one olive off of every first class passenger's flight for the year and saved like £1 million.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it going, that can't be right. But you think about the amount of flights that they're doing and just them small little changes, how you can make it. And I do sometimes question, is that going to be the difference between me and a successful business and an ultra successful business? But I want to do it the right way. And the way that I see it is it's an investment. Everything I do is an investment. I'm not worried about making the money now.
Yeah.
As long as we don't go broke and as long as my head's above water, the money will come.
Yeah.
That's my motto.
And I like taking British Airways, for example, I cancelled my BA reward cards because when you get on, I don't know if you've flown.
Because there was one less on
I don't
the
fly,
plane.
yeah, kind of. But generally, I think they'd been around and made all these small changes to have a big impact, but not on the customer, on their bottom line. So I don't fly business anymore because the prices are totally different to they were 5 or 10 years ago. But when I did, if you go on an Emirates business class, you get China plates, nice cutlery, amazing service. If you want something and it's not on the menu, you get it, as long as they can source it on the plane somehow.
Yeah.
You go in there, everything looks nice warm lighting, has a bit of personality. Have you been on a British Airways business class?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It is horrible.
Yeah.
Like, all they've done is designed it to fit as many people in as possible. There's no colour scheme. It's just all grey. Everything you get in terms of food, like the food on the way out on British Airways, interestingly, is really good because they have the UK caterers that come on.
Yeah.
And instead of maintaining those, because it'd be more expensive to pack that food, they pick up food from wherever they go to. So generally speaking, the food on the way back on British Airways is horrible.
So cutting corners.
Because they're cutting corners thinking this will make us profitable.
Yeah.
But in the long term, all that's happening is people are shifting from British Airways business class across to Emirates, across to Etihad, across to Virgin.
Yeah.
Then eventually they'll realise, and it will take so long to reverse that ship and get back to where they need to be.
So where I'm talking about how I look after our team,
Yeah.
it's the same with the clients. Go the extra mile. You know, they want this, give them a little bit more where you can. And again, it's an investment. And you do a great job for someone. Generally, if the opportunity comes again, they'll want to work with you over other people.
Yeah.
And why not, make sure that you do these little bits, because they will remember that.
Yeah.
Not always.
Totally
it's not always the
agree.
case. Sometimes it just purely comes down to who's cheaper than another one.
Yeah.
But in the industry that we're in, it's about, the creative side of it, but also the artwork. We've done a job for a client. I'm not going to name who it is, but it's a big company. And we went in there to create some artwork, and there was already a piece of artwork on the wall by a famous street artist. And they were talking about painting over it. And I was like, why are you painting over that? That's like a very well-known artist. People in the industry respect that. And they said they had a really bad experience with that artist. And when they look at the artwork on the wall, as much as it's great, they remember all of that. And they remember all the hassle that came with it.
Yeah.
Whereas when we went in there, we never said no to anything. And we were structured. And every time they asked for something, it was we would do it, or we would give a valid reason why we couldn't do it. And we just make everything as hassle-free as possible, that their experience was so positive, to the point that when I spoke to this client recently, because this was a couple of years ago. They said, we're looking at doing some more artwork.
Yeah.
And someone in the industry had approached them. And I said, okay, no problem. And they said, well, we're not going to use them. I said, well, okay, why is that? And they said, well, if we're going to work with anyone, it's going to be you.
Yeah.
And that meant a lot to me, because, and it wasn't even about price or anything like that. I appreciate the other company probably would have been even more expensive. But it wasn't the point. It didn't come into it. And that's where I know that, again, it's the investment in doing these extra things. Yeah,
100%. I think a couple of questions there. One is, how did you keep track? Did you have a list of all those things that you wanted to do differently? You talked about, okay, I want to buy my staff drinks, I want to buy them lunch, I want to do this, I want to do that. Is that just in your brain, or did you write that stuff down somewhere? Here's what I want Murals to be. Here's how I want it to be different. Here's how we're going to treat the team, almost like a mission statement that's written down. Because as you scale, that culture comes from you.
Yeah.
Now, if you bring on other people at a leadership level, how do you make sure that that culture pervades through them and then down through their teams?
So I'm really bad at delegating. Why I haven't got someone right at this moment in time that can take some of the stuff. I mean, I've got different people in different roles that do take a lot of stuff off me, don't get me wrong. But in terms of having someone doing the day-to-day stuff that I'm doing, I haven't quite got that nailed yet. And even to the point where I gave up the social media, I had a social media company going, we'll take it over.
Yeah.
I was so precious about it because I built it up all myself, and I'm not a social media expert by far. But I felt like there's certain things that I couldn't do. But in terms of, I have my best ideas at 2-3 o'clock in the morning, as any entrepreneur would do. I don't sleep very much. I get to sleep, wake up, and that's when I start writing things down and making notes what I want to do.
Do you have a journal or?
I just got notepad or my phone. I just do it in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
But things like making sure that the team are well looked after, no, I don't need to do that.
Yeah, so it's not a structured,
that's
written
not
down
conscious
process. It's not a business plan. It's not a checklist. It's just in your head.
That's natural. There's lots of things that I go, I need to make sure I do this, and this.
Yeah.
Making notes. Don't forget to get this equipment out.
Send your receipts to your finance manager.
All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But in terms of like, as I said, this is very natural.
You've had this first job. You were there for 10 years.
Yeah.
Then you've gone into business with your business partner. But you mentioned initially that you had 2 jobs. Have we missed a job? Or
So from my original job, I then got approached. Okay, let me backtrack. So I was in this job for 10 years, couldn't really get out of it.
Yeah.
Because I was getting paid really well.
Yeah.
They were making everyone redundant, giving me more and more responsibilities. I became very good friends with the photographer at this newspaper. I'd met him years before, when I was a young kid going to a youth club, and he was security guard.
Oh,
and
right.
I was fascinated that people would just walk past him. This is a guy that's looking after us or our kids.
Yeah.
And people just walk past. And I remember seeing that he used to say hello to everyone, and sometimes he wouldn't even get acknowledged. And I used to take the time just to stand there and chat and learn a bit about him, and learn that he's a photographer.
Yeah.
And he was doing this to supplement his income
to
be able to make a book.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I would spend the whole evening not going into the youth club, just standing there chatting to him.
Yeah.
And years later, when I started this job on my first day, he walks in. And bear in mind, this was in East London where we lived.
Yeah.
This job was in North London. So it's not like it was around the corner.
Yeah, yeah.
And he just walked in one day, looked at me and was like, what are you doing here? And he's like, well, I'm freelancing and I just started my job. We then worked together for nearly 10 years, had a great relationship and worked really closely together. His story is absolutely incredible, but at the time I had no idea that he's actually a blind photographer. So his name's David Katz. And inspirational story when we've set up a charity called the David Katz Foundation now to help inspire and to help young visually impaired children.
Yeah.
But I never knew this. I worked with him for years, editing his photos, and he would tell me what he thought. We'd go for lunch, and now I realise that he would never actually look at the menu. He'd pretend to, but he'd always say, I'll have what you're having. All these little things, because he didn't want people to know, because he thought people wouldn't employ him as a blind photographer. Yeah. He thought people wouldn't like or respect his photography. It would be, that's good for a blind guy. Yeah. And he didn't want any of that. And, and it's an amazing story, a separate one for probably a separate podcast for you. But we worked together for 10 years, and what happened was basically he got stitched up in terms of like he was promised things within the company, and all that time they were then working on a structure to get him out of the company.
Okay.
And being one of the management there, I was aware of this, and I couldn't see that happen to not just a friend but a professional.
Yeah.
Just didn't think it was morally right, and I had to stand up for this person, and ended up going to court because he took him to tribunal. I ended up going to court in his defence against my employers.
Okay. Yeah.
Which was extremely tough. Probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, because they've supported you. You're ultimately going against the person that's been mentoring you by doing what you know to be right. Yeah. But I can imagine that's a really tough decision.
I really got
caught between two.
I really like a lot of people had problems with these owners.
Yeah.
Because of the way that they were treating people, but they always treated me right.
Yeah, because you were indispensable to them.
I think so, and I, as I said, I liked them on a personal level.
Yeah.
But I didn't like what they were doing to David, and I stood up for them. And at that point, it made my position in the company very, very challenging. And I knew I had to get out of it. At the same point, I'd probably say it's the closest I ever come to having a breakdown. I remember going to a friend's stag do in Magaluf while all this was going on. Yeah. And I remember we was in a table, sitting around a table, everyone was drinking. We'd only just got there, and beautiful weather, and we was all chatting about everything and anything. And I remember I must have subconsciously slowly moving my chair back like an inch, because in my head, all I was thinking about, it might sound really strange, but you know when you play Tetris?
Yeah.
Did you ever get addicted to it?
Yeah.
To the point that you always like just couldn't get off the game.
Yeah.
So in my head, I was literally having these random shapes, and I was trying to fit them like Tetris in my head. Yeah. And that's all I was thinking about, and I was comparing it to work. When I get back to work, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. And I was like, hey, what am I doing? I'm on a stag do here. Why am I thinking about work of a business that's not even mine? Yeah. And then something happened, and I remember just like looking around, almost like I blacked out, and everyone was over there. I was like a couple of meters back, and I wasn't involved in that. And I thought, I don't feel well. And I remember just going into my bedroom and just sitting there, and I called my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and just said, I need to come home. Yeah. Something's not right. And I managed to get a flight the next day, and I had to apologise to my friend and my other friends, and I got on the flight home, and I went back to work and handed my notice in.
The stress, the underlying stress that you've probably been going through that you weren't even letting yourself be aware of.
I was so lucky.
Just hit you when you came away from work.
Absolutely. Someone had left the company and gone to work for a startup company, which is a huge company that was backed by multi-millionaires in the sports industry, starting up a newspaper, trying to compete with the Racing Post. It was called The Sportsman, and they would pick the best journalists in different newspapers and media, and the best designers and everything like that. And I got an opportunity to go and join this team, and I thought, what brilliant timing. And that was the only way I got out of there. Everything happened at the right time. I believe everything in life happens at the right time for the right reasons. Sometimes when things go really bad and go wrong, I just try and keep calm, because I always believe that there's something good's going to come out of it. And I've had too many experiences in my life now where that's happened. This was one of them. And then I went and worked for this company. It was some of the best times of my life in work, but it was a real media culture where it's sport and media, and everyone was just having a right laugh. Yeah. And there was a lot of gambling involved. There was a lot of drinking involved. So for a year, I had a bit of a blowout whilst working with some amazing people. And then the company didn't last more than a year. They literally spent all their budget on Sky Sports advertising.
That's funny, because it sounds like the same concept as The Athletic is now. Okay. Try and take all the best football journalists, put them all into an online publication, newspaper, write really good content, have great statistical analysis, and take people away from the back pages of the newspapers. Yeah,
the only difference is that The Athletic's still around and it seems to be successful. Yeah. That one didn't work for so many different reasons, but great time. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting there
Everyone's drunk most of the time, potentially.
And then all of a sudden I'm like, I'm out of a job. So I've gone from having a secure job to then having an opportunity to go and work somewhere else. But for the first time, I'm out of a job.
Yeah.
And what I'd done was I needed to work, so I started freelancing, and then I got to experience different things. I was doing working on a Formula One magazine for a couple of weeks, and then going to work on others. And I just learned lots of things. And then an opportunity came up to go and work for a publishing company. My first job was to create a book for the Queen's Jubilee, which I thought was quite incredible because it was being delivered to her. And this was a company that was run. I think it's the first company that I've seen how it was run so badly.
Yeah.
In the sense that the staff was treated so badly. I was treated badly, and I'm not talking about in terms of like a salary or anything like that. It was just the way that I was being spoken to. The dread every time this boss came into the room, how everyone changed and how everyone reacted. And I think that that's where a lot of my relationships now with my staff has come in, because I never ever want anyone to feel like that. And as I said, it had a bit of a negative effect on my publishing company because I treated them so well.
Yeah.
And sometimes it didn't come back. And maybe that's when I started thinking, is that why my boss was like that? Because how people, if you don't sort of be brutal in terms of trying to get that respect, you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
But it didn't work for me because I wasn't that character. So I think that, a bit like a football manager, I think that you have to be clever in terms of how you treat your staff.
Yeah.
You put your arm around some of them. Some of them you need to kick them up the backside.
Yeah, each
Everyone's
one's individual, and you need to do it at different times because you do get managers, who are technically so good, but never give their players a bit of a kick up the backside. And I think with footballers, they almost want that sometimes, because then they know when they're doing well, and they know because there's this rise and fall.
Of course.
You look at Unai Emery for Villa. If you're doing well, he's your best friend. But if you make a mistake consistently in a game, I've seen him rip people to shreds. Yeah. But these are adults and they're footballers and they know what they signed up for.
Yeah.
So I think where you're going into a job, and like you said, you're maybe a junior person that needs mentoring and coaching. He wouldn't go and coach the under 23s and coach in the same way. I'm certain of that.
Yeah.
This is the
it's
full
even
adult team.
Comparing it to Unai Emery and football, and you're managing people that are getting paid millions of pounds. In some cases, he's managing people that are probably getting paid more than he is.
Yeah,
it's the only industry that's that crazy.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that's a job that I would never wish to kind of think about the pressure that you have in doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's about how you treat people, and then ultimately I think that you get that back. And I learned a lot of things from this business and from this character.
Yeah.
And when I went to set up my own business, I tried to keep it that way. It didn't quite work like that in the publishing. We worked, I think it was nearly 10 years that we had this business together.
Yeah.
And it was a lovely business. It paid me a salary that paid the bills for them 10 years. But I felt like we never got further where I felt we had the opportunity. We made some amazing contacts. People looking from the outside looked at it and went, God, you're doing well. You're traveling all around the world. You're creating this beautiful publication.
So was this your own publication?
This is me with my business partner.
Yeah, so you with your business partner, you had your own publication.
That's right, yeah. So it was a publication that we created. It was a German title called Das Erbe unserer Welt. It means heritage of our world.
Okay.
And it was basically, we piggybacked on the subscribers of National Geographic, which is such an iconic magazine globally. But we created this publication that was a gift to the subscribers, and it came out every 6 months.
Yeah.
So no one had to buy it, no one had to pay for it.
Yeah.
And we just piggybacked on that audience. So it was funded by advertising.
Yeah.
No one none of the clients that work with us would have known who Das Erbe unserer Welt is.
Yeah.
But if you say it's in association with, we're working with National Geographic Deutschland, even to the level of the secretary, they would stop and go, oh, this is big. And that's where it kind of worked, and we got our foundations.
Yeah.
And I said we had a successful business for 10 years. We came up with all these other great ideas and side projects, and we just couldn't get them over the line.
Okay.
And I don't know, the reasons, whether it's because we weren't focused enough, maybe we weren't able to do it. Richard Branson, you mentioned, his model was always employ people better than you, more clever than you.
Yeah.
And we just never managed to do that, whether it's because we didn't have the funding to do that. It never took off. And I think that's what held us back. And in the world of publishing, it's getting harder and harder. In terms of budgets for some of the clients and advertising, they're getting stricter in terms of what they can do. Everyone's worried about their boss and making the wrong decision. So it was getting harder and harder, and I could see the way that it was going. And my role was to design. That was what I'd done, design and produce.
Yeah.
Over the years, I found myself going, do you know what, I better jump in here. And I was picking up the phone. I wasn't a salesman.
Yeah.
I never saw myself as a salesman, not because I didn't want to be, just because I didn't think I had the skill set.
Yeah.
I didn't think I had the confidence to pick up the phone. And what happened was we had no option. We were going bust if we didn't sell more advertising.
Yeah.
And I remember picking up the phone a few times, and I don't know if it was my first client, and one of my first clients was Visit Savannah. So Savannah is in Georgia.
Yeah.
And my daughter's called Savannah.
Yeah.
And I thought,
it's a nice name.
Genuinely, from the heart, I wanted to work with Visit Savannah.
Yeah.
Because there's a connection.
Yeah.
And I can tell them, this is my daughter, and one day we want to come over. And it was my first client.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden there was a spark going, I can sell.
Yeah.
I can do this. I've got all these people that are coming in to work for us, and I feel like I can do it better than them. And that was it. All of a sudden I found that passion, and I was selling. And I was doing 30, 40, I think I'd done a £50,000 deal with Visit Malaysia once. It was like, I think I'd done a few of them.
Yeah.
And then I thought, oh my God, I can sell as well. And as much as I got the buzz out of closing them deals, I was going, I'm not doing what I love doing, which is designing. And I found myself doing that more than that. So whereas it kind of went from 10% of my time doing the sales, it became 90% doing the sales, 10% designing. My design never suffered. I just managed to get it done quicker, but I spent less time on it.
And that was through necessity at that time,
it was
right?
necessity. And where I had that OCD in like what I learned from years back in terms of making sure all the lines used to come up and everything like that, I found myself not cutting corners, but just not giving it the added attention that I wanted to, that I could be proud of. And I could feel that slipping away. And at that point, I realised that I don't want to do this anymore after 10 years. And I wasn't quite sure, because me and my business partner had gone through a lot together. And I thought that, we're very different characters. What do I want to do next? Is my relationship with him, is he holding me back? Am I holding him back? I just didn't have the answers to a lot of things. And I know that he was a bit frustrated as well in where he was in his life with the business and his abilities in what he can achieve. And again, always looking to see what else can be done. And I remember just sort of stepping back and going, right, if I want to do something else, what can I do? And I literally, I always compare it to like a little bowl of marbles, and each marble represented an opportunity, and I put them all in there. And I was just like moving them around a little bit. And one was actually to manage an artist. There was an artist that I found living in America that was really talented, very nice and easy to brand up, beautiful looking girl. And I just thought there's an opportunity here. And we started talking about doing that kind of thing. But it didn't work out. One door closed, another one opened up. And one of the things that I had, one of them marbles, was that when we was decorating our house, I wanted to have an opportunity to get all my old football kits out. So I'm a big West Ham fan. I had football shirts from all that through the years sitting in boxes. And I just thought, it's such a shame keeping them in a box. So when my son's room was being decorated, I thought, let's give him the room that I would have wanted as a kid.
The son that turned up today, and I thought he had an Aston Villa kit on. I was so excited, but it's actually
same colours.
Kit. And now this season's Villa kit is the same colour as last season's West Ham kit. But sorry, carry on.
No, that's
so you're getting the kits out of the box.
Got all the kits out of the box, and I was like, right, how do we do this? And I was thinking at first just to bung them up on the wall, perspex it, and it'd be a beautiful backdrop. But then I thought, but then you can't update it with new kits. The light hitting it will probably make it fade. So I kind of racked my brains a little bit, and then I saw my brother had employed a graffiti artist to come to his house and had his son's name, Noah, written in graffiti writing on the wall. And I thought, that's cool. And at the same time, I saw that someone had their bedroom done and made it look like the changing rooms by having a 3D effect of the changing rooms from their football kit and having the shirt hanging up and all of that. So I contacted this artist, which is, a guy called Nasha. And I said, would you be able to do this changing room effect? but I don't want you to paint the shirts. He was like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? Like, that's one of the things we do. I said, no, I want you to do everything. Shirt, shorts hanging off, the bench, the bags, the ball and everything like that, but don't paint the shirts. My idea was that I'm going to drill a real peg on the wall and then hang the shirt.
Yeah.
Because then they're the real shirts, and actually we can change it every week. We can change it every day. His room's going to evolve all the time.
Yeah.
You know, if we've got a shirt hanging up, and I always talk about Arnautovic because that's how I know it was around about that time.
Good player.
He was West Ham's. He was our hero at the time.
Yeah.
And then he done the dirty and left, and we could just take that shirt off. With Arnautovic on the back and put on the new hero, which was Pyatt, and then we could take him down when he done the dirty on us.
Yeah.
And it's always evolving, and I kind of like had that idea. So when I was speaking to Nasher when he was doing this work, I was really fascinated in his job, his skills, his talent. And he was quite fascinated by what I was doing with the design and the publishing.
Yeah.
Remember, he saw one of my magazines, which had Salvador Dali, my hero, on the front cover. And he said, I'd love to paint him one day. And I said, okay, we'll make that happen. I'm going to make that happen. And I was just fascinated because he was so talented. He was so quick. And I said to him, why are you not doing this with the football club? So he's doing a West Ham bedroom. He's done loads of bedrooms like this. I said, why are you not working with the football clubs? He said, how do you do that?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's the easy bit. Get in the relationship, because I believe you can offer something to them that they don't have. And I said, right, I've got an idea. I'm going to set something up. And that was my idea. That was one of the marbles. But it was 3 years earlier. So it took 3 years for me to get to the point to go, right, now I've got to do something.
Okay.
Let me find the time to do this. We did work with Nasher. We were working with the Elvis Presley festival in Germany in a place called Bad Nauheim, which is where Elvis was stationed during the war. It's where he met Priscilla Presley. And we ended up coming up with the concept to paint an Elvis Presley mural on this wall where he famously had his photo taken for an album cover.
Yeah.
So we took Nasher over to Germany and painted it. And that was kind of my first experience in kind of working with an artist and managing them. And it's so easygoing that I thought, this is brilliant. You know, I'd love to do this.
In those 3 years, you're still working with your business partner. You're still doing primarily sales. You've still got the publication. Yeah. But you're starting to build up now.
At that point, I never thought about having a street art business. It was just, I thought this was fun.
Yeah.
And it tied into my other business. But when it come to that point where I was going, right, I need to see what else I can do. I remembered that conversation I had with him about maybe taking this to the football clubs.
Yeah.
And I spoke to somebody I knew that worked at West Ham, and I said, can you get me a meeting with the head of retail? And they set that up. And I remember I went to them with, what I'd done was I actually went to them with an example. So not just a picture of my son's bedroom. What I'd done was as well, I wanted to give another club to show what it works like for another club.
Yeah.
And there was a young girl called Ella Markham who was a teenager with Down syndrome. And I remember what happened was, ironically, it was West Ham played Tottenham Hotspur. Yeah. In the Tottenham Hotspur's new stadium, and West Ham won. So West Ham were the first team to win at White Hart Lane, or the new Tottenham Hotspur stadium. Even if this wasn't relevant to the story, I'd love to talk about this, but it is. And what happened was, after the game, even though they lost, there was like Tottenham have a band playing. It's like a bit of a carnival atmosphere. Okay. And her dad Neil filmed Ella dancing around to the music afterwards, and I remember him posting it saying, even though we lost, Ella still had a great day out. Yeah. And there was a huge backlash on social media with the trolls in terms of the name calling, the Mickey taking. Harry Kane's name got brought into the mix of it. And it was nasty. It was vile. And I remember a few days later that Ella and Neil, well, this is probably where I first saw them, was on Good Morning Britain or one of them TV morning programs, probably with Philip Schofield and Holly Willoughby, and talking about the experiences. And I could see Neil, how broken he was, having to explain this. And I always went back to that kind of mentality of something good comes out of something bad. And they were saying that Harry Kane got in touch and made Ella mascot for the next game. And I'm looking at it going, all of a sudden, like, something bad has become the seed of something positive. Yeah. And what I'd done was I contacted Neil through a mutual friend and said, look, I'm setting up this business and I need to show some more examples. Ella's gone through a terrible time. Would she appreciate if she had her bedroom decorated like this thing? There's no charge, there's no catches, no strings. I just need to show an example. And if I'm going to do it for free, I want to do it for someone that's going to deserve it. And she deserves it. And Neil was like, probably very skeptical at first, going, where's the catch? What's going on? But we hit it off, and to date, we still keep in touch, and, we're friends. And our families have mixed together as well, went to Ella's 21st birthday party. Oh, wow. It's incredible. And she's a big fan of Ollie Murs, and I had the opportunity of managing to get a message for her from Ollie Murs. And so we've kept in touch, and I'll never forget that although we'd done something for them, he still helped me on my journey.
100%.
So I had this video that we made because I had a brilliant videographer I still work today, Josh Adams, Red 5 Films, incredibly talented guy, and he was trying to start his business, and he made this film for me for nothing. We then went to West Ham and said, right, this is what we can do. And I remember just the reaction for the two people in retail was like, wow, okay, we're used to selling mugs with the crest on and bags and kits and stuff like that. This is a little bit different. My concept was that we could decorate people's home with the club and the club backing it. So there's a lot of people doing this stuff, but they weren't doing it with the club. They were just going out putting the badge on. And I went, well, one, you can't really do that. And even if you can get away with it, I'd rather do it with the club. Give them a percentage, but then they can help push it for you. They then brought in the head of licensing because they said this is more of a licensing thing. A lady called Tracy, and her reaction was, this is brilliant. And she said, do you want me to introduce you to another club? Because I can help you. And I was like, well, that's what I want to do. And she said, let me introduce you to Liverpool, because if Liverpool buy into this, then everyone will follow, because everyone copies what Liverpool were doing at the time. So I said, okay, brilliant, really appreciate it. I owe a lot to Tracy because she believed in this and she helped me. Liverpool had the same reaction, and then bang, we're up and running. All of a sudden, I've got licenses with my club, West Ham United, and with Liverpool, one of the biggest clubs in the world. And I thought, this is a great opportunity. To get a license, you have to pay a minimum guarantee. You have to give them money up front. And that's like an advance on their royalties. And with a club like Liverpool, it's a lot of money. So I had to find investment to do that. And I met loads of people in business that spoke about investing. A lot of people sat down with me and said, I get the vision, I want to be part of this, and then disappeared. I had that with quite a few people. And the only people that were consistent was a couple of friends and family members that like, I want to be in this, I want to invest. And I was like, I'm not having friends or family. That pressure of running a business is tough. To have the pressure of, if it doesn't work, it's my family and friends. And my uncle said to me that if you don't allow me to do this, then actually you're being unfair to me. You're stopping me having the opportunity. I'm doing this because I want to be involved in this. And I was like, thought about it a little bit. And I remember I went up to Liverpool, had a meeting, and the reaction was so good. We come up with a great strategy for marketing that I thought, let's do it. But my mission was always to make sure that I pay back the investors. Even though they're going to be shareholders, it was, let's pay them back as quickly as possible. And that was always my mission from day one. Don't worry about paying myself. It's always about repaying them. And I was really proud that within 3 years, we paid back the 4 investors, everything. That was always my mission. So now anything that we can get in shares, it's going to be profit for them. So their investment was great. So that was really important to me.
There's a couple of things there. One is, you do see so many people that are technically excellent and they're craftsmen and they're technicians, but they would have no idea. Or maybe they'd have an idea, but they would never have the confidence, let's say, to go and pick up the phone and get on the phone, which is what it would take, rather than just blasting off an email or whatever, to get in that room, then put yourself out there to front up the cost of the videographer and all the other things, to get to the point where you're still taking a chance, aren't you? And that is the mark of a true entrepreneur, in my case, is they're willing to take a chance and put yourself out there and get over, because you would have had a fear of failure like everyone.
Massive.
But you've got to get over that and get yourself out there. But then once you get that first little ball rolling, then you're away, aren't you? You're away to the races and you've given yourself some confidence. So they gave you the licensing deal, you took investment, you paid it up front. And just from a practical perspective, so I can understand it, what were they doing in the shop or online or email? They're promoting that as a service, and then people had a way of getting in touch with you.
Yep. So we were responsible to promote it ourselves.
Okay.
They would never.
Would they give you access to their list, their email list, and things like that? No.
So it was literally.
But you could make a social media post and tag them in it or something.
Exactly that,
Okay.
and you can use confidently the badge and stuff like that. But my model was, if I can do something that their marketing team, so forget the licensing team, their role is to get minimum guarantees and then get royalties off of you.
Yeah.
But I thought, if I go to the marketing team, who are there to promote the club in a good and positive light and always be groundbreaking and forward thinking, if I go to them with a concept that's going to make people look at them and go, wow, that's incredible, then it's a no-brainer. They're going to promote me.
Yeah.
So although they were told you can't rely on us, I thought, well, let me have this meeting.
Yeah, they want to, because it's adding value. That product in itself, which I guess is your first product, right? Your first product or service.
Yeah.
It's adding value to the fan. And it's like a football club has to have a fan base that is dedicated, committed, and grows.
Yeah.
And they're going to have it done. Then they're going to share pictures, and then it grows and grows and grows from that.
So my concept was, the original Mark 1 of Murals was to create street art in people's homes.
Yeah.
So under license, we could do it with the football clubs, but rather than going to a commercial gallery and buying a nice picture for your wall, we could get real life street artists to come in and decorate that wall with your piece. And I just thought that was really unique. And it's something really that kind of a high net worth person would want. And then I'm dealing with people that you don't have to haggle on.
Yeah, and you're also making connections by doing work.
Absolutely. Yeah, because they're running their own businesses, and it made perfect sense for me to do that. And I went to the marketing team at Liverpool and said, look, if what I'm willing to do is to give up a bedroom every few months, and let's find a child that has had a bit of a tough time at school, being bullied, or through ill health, they just need that kind of motivation and mojo. Let's decorate their room. Let's give them DIY SOS. That was my concept.
Yeah.
Let's create that, but let's do it with street art in your bedroom. Yeah. And that's all I had in my mind. And the marketing team got it straight away. One of the ladies there, head of marketing, Harriet, she was fantastic. She got it straight away. She went, I can see how this is really great for your product, but it's also really good for the club. And we went forward, and that was our concept. We launched just before Christmas. So we had this amazing story of going into these these two children into their bedroom. Yeah. They shared a room together. We decorated it all with Liverpool and street art. We had Mo Salah on the wall, and we had this changing room experience. And Liverpool went to some of their other licensed partners, and they got carpet and bedding and everything. Wow. It was just absolutely brilliant. PlayStation in there. And I managed to get, because the club couldn't get us a player, I managed through my contacts to get a young player coming through called Rhian Brewster. Okay. Because we had the contact, his cousin was in my school. Yeah. And we managed to get him to come along. And the kids loved Rhian Brewster. He was a young kid coming through. That was their inspiration. And we painted him on the wall, and we got him to come in and pretend that he was one of our artists. He had the hat on, he had the Murals jumper, he was rocking the branding, he had the mask on, the respiratory mask that the artists wear. And he's chatting to them going, do you like that player? Do you like Rhian? And all that kind of thing. And they were like, yeah, I loved it. Then he pulled the mask off. Wow. And it was the best reaction, because the kid looked at him and went, is it? And then he got the photo of Rhian that he signed that was sitting next to his bed and compared it next to his face. And it went crazy. I mean, it went viral. Yeah. Because
you're videoing this and creating content. So you've also got the idea at the time to document that. Yeah. Which would have been in 2019?
So this was 2019.
Yeah,
Christmas.
So it's still early for people creating content as, a documentary style.
Definitely.
It's not, it's like everyone's doing
so
it.
LFC,
it wasn't really done then, right?
No, LFC TV filmed it. We were going to film it, but they said, no, you don't have to. We'll capture all the content. Yeah. So this was my project. This was my concept, and we were going to work with Liverpool. Just before it was coming out, there was a hold up. There was a delay. Yeah. They said that it's been delayed. Okay. Wasn't given the reasons at the time. And then ultimately it turned out that there was a lot of internal fighting, because people at the club in certain divisions didn't want to promote Murwalls.
Okay.
They didn't want Murwalls' name to be mentioned. Now, in the video, it was clear that it was a Murwalls project, but in the wording and stuff like that, they said because of our sponsors, we can't mention Murwalls.
It's instigated by Liverpool.
Yeah, and kind of looking back at it, I get that, but it was so frustrating that it got this far.
Yeah.
And then they said that all of this, so it's my project, my concept, my gift.
Yeah.
And I was going to film it, but you said, no, let us film it. And all of a sudden, I can't have my name on this.
Which makes sense because they're paying them tens of hundreds of millions of pounds. And
Absolutely.
they're saying, we're not getting this Instagram reel that has had 10 million views.
Yeah. So that was my first experience of being stitched up.
Yeah.
And as I said, I don't think it was always planned, but it didn't go the way that it was meant to go, the way that we'd planned it. And there were certain people within the club that were really frustrated by that and on my side. But that's the way it went. That's how it was, and it set me in good stead because I learned when I was working with other clubs in the future that let's do things properly. Let's get everything in writing. Let's agree everything first of all. It went out, but we didn't quite look. I was still amazed by the way that it went viral. Yeah, and I was in there. I was being interviewed, so I still got publicity from the back of it. The thing that really did screw us up is that 2 or 3 months later we went into lockdown. So all of a sudden, my concept of going into people's houses and decorating their bedrooms, who knows? At that point, no one looked at it and went, it's going to be a few months, it'll be blow over. People were talking about this is going to go on for years. You know what?
That was
this
your
might
business,
be the future.
Right? That was the product.
Yeah. So we're screwed. I've just started up this new business, and we're absolutely done for. And I remember sitting down with my business partner on my publishing and saying, I think I need to carry on doing this for a while because I'm just not confident in this now. But obviously that business was a bit screwed because people weren't advertising, especially like holidays, travel and destinations. Yeah. So everything was really kind of a bit of a blur.
Print media generally is declining.
Right? Yeah. It was tough times. However, it's probably the most relaxed I've ever been in my professional career. All of a sudden I'm at home. I'm with my kids. I'm with my wife. It was beautiful sunshine during that lockdown period, the first lockdown, and we were like, oh well, let's just clear out the house, like let's play games together. Before we started thinking about homeschooling and all that, it was the best few weeks I think we've ever had.
Reconnection.
Because I didn't have to worry about work. I've always felt like if I stop working, I'm worried about what I'm missing out on. Christmas was always the time that I really liked because I felt like I could switch off because everyone switches off. Yeah. So I felt like I can get away with it, but I'd never had that any other time of the year. This was the first time I thought I can chill out, I can relax.
And how old are your kids now?
My eldest is now 16, my son's 14, and my youngest is 11.
Yeah, so they would have been like 12, 8 or
exactly.
9.
The young.
5 or 6.
Young,
perfect
and
age to spend time with.
It was great. It was brilliant. And then over the weeks, you see that people were starting to get a bit itchy and wanted to start going back to work. And that's when I thought, okay, I now need to think about what I'm going to do. And I had this idea. So Liverpool Football Club at that point were going to win the league. Football had stopped, as you remember rightly, but they were so far ahead that everyone knew that they were going to win the league if football was coming back, because there was an if. So what I done was I got in contact with one of the big fan groups, Red Men TV. And I said, look, there's a beautiful mural of Trent Alexander-Arnold that went up in Anfield the year before. And I said, could we do something like that to celebrate winning the league and do it with you? And they were like, yeah, this is brilliant, but we're a bit nervous about committing to that because Steven Gerrard, when he slipped up, right, you don't want to bock it. And I said, no, well, let me take all of that on. Let me make the plans. And if you get there, we'll make this happen. So it's probably about 6 months, I think, if you talk about when football stopped and then when it came back. Yeah. And what I'd done in that time was I'd already been door knocking on all the houses around the area saying, you've got a gable end wall, you're right next to Anfield, do you want a mural done? And I remember just getting like people saying, are you mad? Like, I don't even know who owns this house. So they were renting off someone, or they were an Everton fan. Yeah. But I had a few that were Liverpool fans that went, I'd love this on my wall. Yeah. Please do it. And as I said, at this point, there was probably just the Trent mural on there. So what I done was I planned it that the night that they lifted the trophy, we had our team out on a scissor lift. So the club photographer beamed us over the photograph as Henderson lifted the trophy. And our team worked through the night to get that mural done. It was really stressful for me because it was the first one I'd done on this kind of scale. I had a lot of people around me saying, don't worry, it'll be all right. But lots of things were going wrong. We had a neighbour coming out going, you know, you shouldn't be doing this at this time of night. The scissor lift's keeping my kids up. Like, we had all these things I hadn't even thought about. And the next day, Jordan Henderson came down with his dad, and his reaction was like, oh my God, what a tribute to me. And he had his photo taken and he signed the wall. And I was like, yeah, this is what it's all about.
Yeah.
This is bigger than any bedroom I could ever imagine. And then Redmen TV said to me, we've just had a call from BBC. They've asked if I can give out your number. Are you okay with that? And I was like, go on then. So BBC called me, BBC Sport.
Yeah.
Said, would you be interested in painting a piece for the start of Match of the Day?
Okay.
We haven't got a big budget. That's what they said. We haven't got a big budget.
So this first one for Liverpool, did they pay you for that, or did you again do that
Liverpool,
as something to get you going on this product number 2?
So Liverpool didn't want me to do it.
Oh, okay.
The licensing team didn't want me to do it because my license was to do homes and bedrooms, not to do outside.
Yeah, which you can't do.
And I said, well, that's fine, but there's another one, or there's a few people that are starting to do these murals that don't have a license.
Yeah. So
by me having a license, I'm being hindered. Why can't I do this? And the fan group basically turned around and said, if we don't do it with you, we're going to do it with someone else, but we want to do it with you.
Yeah.
So they wrote to the club, and the club just said, okay, go ahead and do it. But it took a bit of pressure in the end from the fan group. So we done this, and obviously, as I said, Henderson came down. BBC called me, said, do you want to do Match of the Day? And at that point, they said we had a small budget. I would have paid them. If they said, can you do the beginning of Match of the Day? I would have paid them. That was like the dream for me to have done that. So that's it. We then worked on this piece for Match of the Day, and then I just realised that this is really easy because we're creating incredible content and incredible artwork that was a growing trend. Street art was really being popularised and appreciated by people. It's been around for years, but all of a sudden people are starting to like it. And then you mix something like football, which is, you know, the passion that goes into that. Yeah. And then the love for art, and on a large scale, you mix them two together. It's the perfect ingredients to create something that people go, wow. And that was it. And the rest is history. And I always say, since then, we haven't done many bedrooms. Stephen Gerrard's son had a bedroom done by us because he asked us to do it. And other than that, we haven't really done too many bedrooms as murals because the publicity you get from the big giant walls, that's where it's at. Yeah.
And I think it's a big lesson for people to be willing to go out and do whatever it is that you do in a business, to be willing to go out when you believe in your product and the quality, to think past, oh, I should be getting paid for this, or I should be getting paid this much for this. I can't remember what book I was listening to, or podcast or whatever, a long time ago, but that always resonated with me as well. When you first start out, try and pick the highest profile client you can and go and do some work that demonstrates your value in exchange for a case study or documenting it and being able to share it. Like for me, I could go and maybe call up the biggest influencer in an industry niche and say, I'll coach you on your numbers for 6 months for free. And we don't have to share your numbers, you'll just at the end give me a written testimonial, whether it was good, did it deliver value, whatever, right? If I know then that that person is followed by 10 million other people that aspire to be like that person, it's just a no-brainer for me. But I think lots of people, I don't know whether it's ego or they have to pay their bills, skip past that first bit of doing good work either for free or for very little because they're worried about then what do I do to the next person? If that person finds out that they've done it for free, how do I charge the next person? Like, how did you unravel that? Slowly start charging what you were worth.
But that goes back to what we spoke about at the beginning, which was investment. You're investing in your business.
100%.
And the way that I see it is, I always felt that I wouldn't get a client like Liverpool to pay me to do something, or BBC Sport, because we're unknown.
So those are like Gymshark grew so quickly, not because of the quality of their products, definitely not. Some are really good, to be fair, and last for ages, but most just fall apart. Hopefully they won't sue me for that. I don't think they'll be listening.
If you're telling the truth, you can't be sued.
Okay, fair enough. They had influencers go and wear the product.
Yeah.
They either paid the influencers or they made it worth their while to come to their events and use their audiences to then charge your regular person. And it works so well.
I always felt...
Like, 2019 people weren't doing influencer marketing. So you're coming up with some of these concepts. Well, maybe they were. Some people were. You're coming up with some of these concepts by having that thinking time.
Yeah.
I guess, like you said, you come up with your best ideas, walking the dog or going for a shower or whatever. Or when you first get up in the morning and journaling, which is another big takeaway for people. Get up, get a pen, get a journal, get a coffee or whatever gets you going and write your ideas down.
Yeah.
And then you're executing on those ideas.
Well, it came from my publishing business. Like, we had National Geographic's name behind us, but ultimately we couldn't have attracted the top brands because we didn't have the numbers behind us or the experience behind us. So we kind of went, let's pick out a client that's out of our reach. So we're not even losing out. It's a client that would never work with us.
Yeah.
Aston Martin. So we contacted Aston Martin and said, would you be interested to advertise in our publication? It's a high net worth audience.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we don't advertise. At that point, they weren't advertising, especially in publications. And we said, we'll do it for free. What's the catch? There's no catch. If we do it for free and we open up the magazine, you see Aston Martin, all of a sudden, any other high profile client that we go to afterwards are never going to question whether we're good enough. Because they're going to look and go, if it's good enough for Aston Martin, it's good enough for us. They have no idea that we gave that away for free.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't that easy. Aston Martin said, even if it's for free, we have to do a lot of checks.
Yeah, of course.
And ultimately, we got them on board. And we gave them what you call in the industry a filler. There was space in the magazine. Let's put them in, give them a prime position. And that's what helped us. And I took that mentality. So when I started the business, I was like, let's try and go for a client and Sony Pictures, Ghostbusters. Let's go to them and say, we're going to create not just a piece of artwork, but we're going to create a production, a video showing the making of the mural, which is a promotion for your new film. And there's no charge for that.
Yeah, so you'll have these projects even now each year that you're doing for free. They're flagship things that you get worth and value from and allow you to promote your brand.
We don't do it anymore.
Oh, you don't do it at all?
We don't do it anymore. We do a lot of freebies, but the freebies that we do are charitably led. So a charity or an individual.
So at what point, that was like, I really want to know the answer to that question, which is at what point do you decide, okay, we're not doing that anymore? And how do you then go back to someone who did it before for free and say, we have to charge you now?
Probably a couple of years in.
Yeah.
You got to remember the first year was a bit of a write-off because we're learning and it's during the COVID times and there weren't much going on.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, once everything opened up, bang, all of a sudden we're getting inquiries that I couldn't keep up with.
Okay, so once you feel like demand is at a certain level, on feel, you can then transition.
There wasn't time. There wasn't time to be able to do these things for free.
Yeah.
There are projects that I wanted to do and there's still projects that I want to do today that I might not get funding for, that I want to do. They're the passion projects. For the
creativity.
Absolutely. Or the marketing side of it, but I haven't had to do it for quite a few years now.
Yeah.
But it's not to say that we wouldn't do it, but ultimately we now get people coming to us. We've never advertised what we do other than put it out on our social media, which is obviously advertising in a way, but we've never done a paid for advert.
Yeah.
We've never had to pay for anything. Everything's become organic.
But that comes back to staff, comes back to quality of service on client, comes back to what Tony Robbins calls, who's on my mind, 'cause the business mastery is happening this week, which we support. Raving fans. Like, are you delivering what he calls, it's very American, but massive value? I can't do it in American. Are you delivering massive value? Like, hand on heart, is it more than they expected to get? Because if you're not getting referrals from your clients, I always say you're not delivering massive value and you haven't created what he calls raving fans.
Yeah.
But it sounds like to me, through your focus on team and through your focus on the client, that is your objective. Massive value plus they're raving fans.
I've always sort of gone back to this pushing myself in terms of being the best that I can be and my business can be. So I'm very rarely satisfied
Yeah.
with what I've done, which is good and bad. So one of my business mentors, Eric, has always said to me that the way that my mind works is one of the best things about me. It's also one of the worst things about me, because it means that I can't get to appreciate what we're doing. Sometimes I have to sit back, and I've been advised, go and look on YouTube at all your videos that you've created. When you're having a bad day and you're starting questioning things, go and look through what you've done.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel better. And I do that occasionally. But ultimately, I'm never satisfied with what we've done. Yes, I always get nervous before we create a big job. And that's what stops things from going wrong. Because I'm nervous, I make sure I plan A, B, C, and D.
Yeah.
Sometimes an
you
E.
need a certain amount of nervous energy and stress, but it's
like going on a stage as an actor.
Is it productive? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the point
Which
is
it is.
that I don't.
You'll take it to a level when it's productive,
Yeah.
but you have to ask yourself that question. Is this getting to a level like when you went to the stag do?
Yeah.
It's getting to the point now where I can feel I need a break. Or,
Yeah.
like we spoke on the first call actually about breaks and planning out the year. Mm-hmm. You mentioned to me, you don't sit there and pre-plan the year out like I do, because I'm, accountant and very organised. And I schedule out all my breaks and work in 4-month sprints and all of this stuff. But you work until you feel like you need a break. And you can feel that level. Then you take it. So you're presumably very intuitive, which means you have to be kind of in touch with yourself and have that time each day or each week to ask yourself certain questions.
Yeah. I don't have that ability to say, I want to stop.
Yeah.
Because I'm always worried that I'm going to fall behind. And that's why I said, I'm always planning the project and make sure nothing goes wrong.
Yeah.
By planning A, B, C, and D, and E. As soon as it's finished, as soon as that paint hits the wall and we start working and everything's in place, I chill, I relax, I become a different person.
Trust the process,
trust the team. Trust the process. And as soon as it's done, I stand back and I go, yeah, I'm proud of that, I'm happy with that. And then bang, straight away I'm like, no, we could have done this better. We can do this better. How am I going to make the next one bigger and better?
Yeah. And
then all of a sudden I'm back straight into that kind of process of driving myself to make it bigger and better. And the plus side of that is that the next piece will be bigger and better.
Yeah, and you keep moving forward.
The negative is that I'm not getting to appreciate what we've achieved and what we've done.
So who in your life helps you understand when you're getting to the point where you might need a break or you're pushing yourself too hard, and also reminds you of all of your achievements? Like someone said to me as well, from a financial perspective, don't always measure your finances against your budget.
Mm-hmm.
Measure this month against this month last year.
Yeah.
Like you looking back at your work, because I'll beat myself up all the time for not hitting my financial targets.
Yeah.
But if I look at this month versus last year, then instantly the feeling is different, because we've made progress, and as human beings we want to progress. So who helps you sense check stress levels and overwork, and also recognize that you are doing a good job?
My close friends, my close family, they're the people that tell me when I need to chill out.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean to say I listen to them. My dad's probably the worst at that, saying you've got to slow down, you're doing too much. I was like, Dad, you used to work 6 days a week, leaving the house at 5 o'clock in the morning and getting home at 8 o'clock at night. My dad was had a carpet fitting business, and he was self-employed.
Yeah.
And I was like, but you done that? And he says, yeah, I know, but you don't have to do that. You shouldn't do that. You need a break. And I take it that yes, he knows from experience, but I'm like, yeah, but you done it,
and it's
so you can't tell me.
I was reading Silent something. It's a novel. Silent Witness, Silent something.
Okay.
I saw it on someone's Instagram story. It's the best book they'd ever read, and you can literally never put it down. I'll tell you after which one it is. I'll put it in the show notes, and you can literally never put it down.
Right.
There's this psychotherapist talking about helping this woman, and one of his paragraphs is that everything almost that you do that's either productive or unproductive was shaped by your observations as a child. So because you observed him in this theory, working hard, it's in your subconscious now that that's the minimum acceptable level.
Yeah.
So you have to fight your subconscious to get back to working less than that, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me. So in a way then, and I find that with my dad as well, he'll be, are you okay? You're working super hard. Are you doing this? And I used to see him working 6 days a week and working all the hours. And I'm like, well, I got it from you. It's learned behavior.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult for me to reverse out of it.
Yeah.
But having an awareness of it.
I'm completely aware of it, to the point that my kids constantly tell me. Because what happens is I get home from work.
Yeah.
And at that point, that's the first time in the day that I get to catch up on a lot of my, let's say, phone calls, could be work related or personal ones that I haven't done.
Yeah.
So as far as they're concerned, I'm still on my phone. I'm still doing stuff.
But you've been on projects and on jobs in the daytime, so then you've got that in the business stuff to do, or still wanting to maintain
there's
friendships.
Stuff that if I stopped doing it and didn't do some of them emails or catch up, I'm thinking, but then tomorrow my day's going to be hectic anyway. It's going to be even more hectic. So I'm always sort of chasing myself on that. And it's something that I know I need to work on. It's that I know I need to fix. I'm completely aware of it.
Yeah.
But as I said, I've been fighting that beast for years. Even when I worked for another company, I treated it like it was my own.
Yeah.
So I always know that was, and rather than keep fighting it and lying to myself going, it's going to be better next year. It's going to, I've just gone, do you know what? I'm a workaholic. I'm not going to be able to stop anytime soon. Let's try and find it. But my mission and my goal was always to be, let's make ourselves financially secure.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, I love what I do. But financially, if you're secure, the pressure's off. You can actually probably be even more creative.
Yeah.
And I always say, if I won the lottery tomorrow and £10 million was in my account, what would I do the next day? And I know that I'd be up at 5 o'clock in the morning doing exactly what I was doing.
I'd still go to
I might
work
enjoy
too.
it a little bit more.
And it's a really good question for people to ask themselves if they've got a business, because if you would stop, you're probably not in the right business.
Yeah.
I think. And I think, well, I'll ask you, I believe that time with family is quality over quantity. Presumably you've accepted the fact that you're a workaholic, but the time that you have with your kids, like my kids have gone to Toca Social, we spoke about that, to play football. You're taking your son there
this
to play
afternoon.
football.
Yeah.
You brought him with you to go and visit Aston Villa, best club in the world.
Best colours in the world.
So you're spending time together. So presumably that is a priority.
Yeah.
But would you say that's been one of your biggest struggles, is balancing that workaholic with
the balance? The balance.
You feel guilty when you're working because you're not with your family, and when you're with your family, you feel guilty for not working.
Because especially what I'm doing now, I'm travelling a lot. I was in LA 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I flew back from LA after being there for 3 days, and then the next morning I had to be in Birmingham for 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So I got back from LA, got home 8 o'clock at night, said hello to everyone, and then by 5 o'clock in the morning, before everyone's up, I'm back up in Birmingham. And then the next day I was in Southampton, and then I was up in Burnley. And the only thing I can say is that that's a really good thing, because it shows that we're busy and we're doing things. But I also know that there's, especially during the school holidays, this is your time with kids.
Yeah.
I need to step back a little bit, and I'm conscious of it. And rather than lying to myself or anyone else, I've gone, I admit it, it's wrong. Yeah. But I just can't find that switch at the moment. And I know that I'm going to look back and regret it and going, time's so precious. Before you know it, my oldest has just left school. It's like, it feels like she just started school. That's crazy.
Goes so quick.
So I'm aware of that, which is why I believe that I hopefully will one day be able to fix that.
And all you can do is your best. I personally think that, just judging from today and the fact that you brought your son with you, you find a solution that, like you're good at doing in your business, is win-win. You can still go do some work. You can still come and do the podcast. He's still playing FIFA as we speak. And then you're going to spend time together. Then you do that with your other child and your other child. So if you can't operate the system that everyone says you should have, in inverted commas, you make your own system. Yeah. And you take them with you. And the beauty of what you do, I couldn't take my kids into my office and let them watch me do accounting, because they drive me crazy. Yeah. But they are going to be interested in what you do and want to go to see those places and those. It's
quite funny because I've taken them a lot to some really interesting jobs, and they've met some incredible people. But I've never seen them kind of, apart from my youngest, who is probably a little bit more open in terms of, like, she shows her feelings. The others are a bit like, And And I'm like, oh God, like Nasher, our artist, like he always says the same thing. Like his son's never impressed by what he's doing.
Yeah.
And it kind of frustrates me a bit. But then I meet people like the kids' teachers or parents of another kid.
Yeah.
And they will go, God, your kids are proud of you, aren't they? They're telling everyone what you're doing. And I'm like, really? Wow. So I know it's got that effect. They're just not showing it to me.
Yeah.
My wife's exactly the same. My wife never sits down and goes, like, she'll blatantly deny this, but she'll never sort of say, I'm proud of what you're doing or what's amazing. But I know for hearing it from other people how proud she is of what
do you know what? Mine are exactly the same. Occasionally she'll say to me, but only if I look like I'm about to have a little mini breakdown, which might happen every 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
Then she'll tell me.
Yeah.
So I know she is.
Yeah.
But it's almost like she's decided she wants me to feel supported and keep driving forward and keep working hard.
Yeah.
So she's finding her own balance of not patting you on the back too much, because you don't want to get complacent. A big mistake I made when we hit 1 million in turnover was bought some golf clubs. I decided to go down to a 3-day week.
Right.
And just stop working, stop driving, stop moving forward. And that was a big mistake because I didn't enjoy it. I wasn't ready for retirement.
Yeah.
And you need a goal, not just to get par on a golf course. Like my goal now is to create generational wealth so my kids can choose what they want to do with their lives.
Yeah.
Maybe do a Duncan Bannatyne style thing where, look, if you earn 50k, I'll give you 50k. If you earn 200k, I'll give you 200k. Something where they have to work for it. So they're not just given money and they go and spend it on drink and drugs and whatever. And that will be worst case scenario. But we have generational wealth so they can make choices. So sometimes you get to a certain point, you just need another goal. Mm-hmm. But maybe what they're doing in supporting us is making sure they give us the right balance of not praising us too much.
Yeah.
And you marry the person that's right for you. You know, sometimes I think I wish I was married to someone that just was like a yes person. But the reality is I wouldn't.
It wouldn't be any good for you.
No, it wouldn't be good for me because I would become really big for my boots.
Yeah.
And I would be the controller in that relationship.
Yeah.
Like you probably would. What you need is someone who'll stand up to you and you respect each other.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But really important to have their support, and it's the reason why we do it. I tend to try and not talk about my kids or my wife on the podcast because I end up starting to cry because I'm a big crybaby. Okay. But it is why we do it.
But that's a great thing, right? Because it shows, one, you're human, but also emotionally that's why we do these things.
Yeah,
that's
100%.
why we're doing it.
And they need to know that, right? Okay, so all the questions I normally ask, you've answered in the course of a normal conversation, which I love because I want these conversations to be flowing and normal.
I get told I'm good at talking. So.
Yeah, you are very good at talking. And you cover really useful stuff. Like, did you have a mentor? Yes, it's super important to go and find someone and learn from them. Learn what they're doing well, but also learn what you want to do differently if you go and start your own business. You know, was it natural talent we spoke about that opened the doors, or hard work? Combination of both. Like, what did you do at the start to get momentum? You put yourself out there. Like, these are all really, really great lessons for people. If you had to wrap up which I always try and ask, your 3 keys to success. Yeah. Because it's only 2019 to 2024. It's not a long period of time. And Murals is doing amazing things with amazing clients. And like you said, you've probably got more demand than you can fulfill at the moment, which is an amazing space to be. What are your 3 keys to success for either the viewers or the listeners?
Well, before I get onto that, if you don't mind, I just want to explain how Murals has evolved. So obviously, you know, the big street art is what people know us for. Yeah. But what was happening was we'd done a project for Manchester City. Yeah. And we created a mural, and they said, look, we want to use the artwork and turn it into a product, a print to sell through the club shop. Brilliant. Okay. So we created this limited edition print of a mural of Sergio Aguero that we've done. And they bought 9,320 off of us because his goal was scored in the 93rd minute, 20 seconds. So we come up with this concept of making it limited edition, limited to 9,320. So it's not that limited, but enough. And it went down really well. We would sell it to them at wholesale price. They sell it through the club shop. And then all of a sudden I'm like, we can do this with other artworks. We can do this onto other products. And then all of a sudden it got to a point where I couldn't handle it because we're working with brands like Hasbro and Transformers where we can create all this product, but I just don't have the time in my mind and physically to do this. And
it's the logistics.
I had a few people that wanted to get involved, and fast forward to where we are now, when we born Murals Publishing, which I set up as another division that's run by a gentleman called Richard Higson, who's in the world of licensing, and we used to share our problems together. And there's an opportunity to work together, and now he's running with this. Basically, we work together to create product that goes into football club shops. So we've done like ranges of graffiti stuff that goes into the West Ham store, Manchester City, Manchester United. We're working with a lot of clubs. There's more clubs we're working with than not.
What were you doing at Villa when you were up there?
So Aston Villa was a mural on the side of the building. So
on
we
the
haven't
new
done.
North Stand.
It's on the temporary store, which is on the side of the pub. On Holt Road.
Yeah, I went there on the shirt launch.
Right. Okay. And that was what it was connected to, was the short shirt launch.
Okay.
But ultimately, that's now got us into an opportunity to speak to their retail team to go, right, can we do product
which they need, because they've got a brand new big spanking new shop,
and they're going to be like great products that kids can have on their bedrooms, or people can have on their desks, or even clothing. Like Crystal Palace have got graffiti style t-shirts that we've created, and we're now just signed an agreement, and we're going into all 135 of HMVs across the whole of the UK.
Wow.
So we've done some products that are for Care Bears and for Transformers, which we have a license for. And they're going to be going in every one of the stores.
Wow.
So that's now being run by someone else, and I'm still heavily involved in that. But it takes up more of my time, but at least someone else is kind of
you've done a Richard Branson and put someone in who's let's say better than you.
Absolutely.
At that aspect, and set it up as a separate entity. And then you just have regular check-ins to make sure that things are moving in the right direction. That's
not something that I had planned when we first started up the business. So when people say, where do you want to be in 5 years? How do you want the business model to go? I'm like, I don't know. Genuinely don't know, because
it's naturally evolving, right?
It's evolved into this, and who knows? And one of the funniest things is, I look back now, when I first set up the business and I came up with this name, Murwalls, or Murwalls as people call it.
I think I've worked out how to say it now.
So it's a combination of the word mural and walls. So it's Murwalls, but people find it hard to say it, including myself. Slight speech impediment with ours, so it's like Murwalls, whatever. As long as people are talking about us, that's all that matters. But we had a meeting the night before launching, and it was with a brand team. And they said, look, we advise you change the name for your company. I was like, I've done all our merchandise, I've got our logos, I've got the website done. Why am I going to do that? I said, because you're promoting a product which is murals on walls. What if you want to start creating products in the future that aren't artwork on walls? And what if you want to create furniture or something like that? And I was like, I thought back for a second and went, oh shit. Yeah, we're pigeonholing ourselves. But then I went, but no, that's what we want to do. But then I went, no, but then what if we want to evolve the business? I'm a bit stuck. So I had a few minutes to think about it, and I went, okay. I said, Car Phone Warehouse. What do they do? And they went, well, they used to sell car phones, but now they sell mobile phones. I went, that's it. And that was it. That's all I needed.
It's true. If you've got a strong brand, it really doesn't matter. You
can call it whatever you want to call it.
100%.
And therefore we've kind of moved forward. And now the business is going into all these different directions. So to answer your question, what are the three key things?
It's okay, I do the same thing. My wife will ask me a question, then I'll go all the way around.
But normally I don't remember the original question. But I've kind of remembered. I think you're asking me...
Three keys to success.
Three keys to success. So I don't look at myself as successful.
Okay.
I don't look at Murals
as successful. 3 keys to success for the person that's listening
then. How do you get there? It's about dedication. And as I said, it can be to the detriment of other things, but dedication, in you've got to give everything to it. Don't leave no stone unturned. Because if you cut corners, ultimately you're not going to be as successful as you want to be. And even by me doing all them things, I still don't feel that successful. And I think that's probably my second point, is keep grounded. Don't ever believe the hype. Sometimes it's nice to get a bit of smoke blown up your ass, but ultimately you've got to keep your feet on the ground. So when things are up there and are going really well, whether it be in terms of the kudos or people congratulating you, or even financially, that can come crushing down. Like you could have a month where you've got no business, or no one's talking about you, or someone's doing something better than you. So keeping grounded is really important, because otherwise you're going to be like that. And I'm trying to stay like that. It's not always possible, but I'm very up and down person. So as much as I'm having a bad day, I always go, actually, tomorrow I could have a really good day.
Yeah.
So just get through today.
Yeah.
And then my third point that I would say is just keep believing in yourself and keep believing in what you're doing. And there's so many times where I question myself, question what I do. I always use Stephen Fry as an analogy. I remember Stephen Fry at one point had a moment where he said that he questioned that he was actually good at what he'd done, being a comedian or an actor. And this is a guy that, you know, had lots of people telling him how amazing he is at what he does, and I think he is as well. But he questioned himself, and I don't know if that's he was having a breakdown or anything like that, but it made me think that even people that you look at that you think to be successful doesn't mean that they believe that they are.
Yeah.
And I look at that and go, I take some positives from that, because again, that's going to push him to make himself better. But at the same time, he's not going to appreciate himself at any point. And that's one thing that I'm striving to do, is get to a point where I can actually pat myself on the back and go, well done, Mark, that was brilliant. And I haven't got to that part in life yet, but I believe I will get there.
But be happy along the way is what you're saying. Like if you take the football analogy, and we both love football.
Yeah.
And we haven't even got into football.
Yeah.
So that'll be for a future one. They talk about the best footballers. You know, don't get too high when things are really great. And don't get low when things have gone well.
Yeah.
Enjoy the high, not too much.
Yeah.
And feel the low, and what can you learn from it?
Yeah.
But not too much. And try and stay at a similar level, which I think is obviously what you're trying to do.
I had an experience 5 years ago where I created an event with my wife, which was an event to ultimately, it was to celebrate my wife having 10 years of remission after having lymphoma. And she couldn't find that way to move on. Her consultant was saying, you're as good as anyone else now. Like, stop worrying about it coming back and all that kind of stuff. And I thought the only way to do it was to do something that we used to do, some charity events, but do something like that. But then she can kind of put it behind her and move on. And I thought, we've done so many things in the past, but let's do something big. Through my publishing company, I was very fortunate, but I became friends with the youngest son of Audrey Hepburn, Luca Dotti, the most incredible guy. And I spoke to him about what I was looking to do, and he said, use my mum's name to help create an event, because I didn't want an event about another charity event, another do.
Yeah.
And I didn't want it to be about the charity. I just wanted to create an amazing event. And the bonus of that is that we raise money for charities. And we done an event called Remembering Audrey Hepburn at the Royal Lancaster in London. And everyone that went and attended loved it. And I look back at the video of it, and it was one of the best nights of my life. And at 3:00 in the morning, after tidying up, my wife turned around and said, I think that's it. I feel like I can move on. It was worth everything. But a week before that, I nearly had a breakdown. I got told by Tiffany's that we're going to sponsor your event, the jewellery company. We're going to sponsor your event. I knew how much money we had to raise to put it on, and then anything else was a bonus. We had an issue with one of the other big sponsors, which is a very big global brand in perfumery. And we got told that we had to remove them from the event. And Tiffany's kept saying, we're going to sponsor you. There was option A, B or C. Even the lowest amount would have tied us over. And then a week before the event, I managed to get him on the phone because I couldn't get hold of him for ages. I think it was head of marketing. And he said, yeah, so sorry. We're just so busy at the moment. We're not going to be able to support the event. Meanwhile, they'd already said to me, do not have any other jewellery company involved in this. It's going to be us. So at that moment in time, we'd lost our headline sponsor. Yeah. And it was the kudos of having Tiffany's, but it was also the fact that we'd lost that money. And at that point, I became £60,000 in debt personally, liable for something I was trying to do for a good cause and to help my wife move on. The other problem with the other client, the other brand, happened an hour later. And I remember sitting in my office in Aldgate, just going, what's going on? Burst out crying. I walked home in the pouring rain from Aldgate to where I live in Harlow. And I walked most of the way. And I got home and my wife was in tears. My best friend was there. She'd called him up and said, you better come. There's a bit of a problem. And I remember just saying that I wanted the world to swallow me up. I wanted my life to be over because I was in huge debt from trying to do something good. And it was more the fact I felt let down by them and lots of other people that I was hoping to rely on to help this thing happen. And I remember just going to bed and I managed to get myself to sleep. I was so exhausted. And I woke up the next morning and I looked in the mirror and just went, I can't do anything about that. I can't do anything about any of this. What's happened? But what I can do is I can give it everything. And the one thing that I can do is I can look myself in the mirror, I can lift my head up high and go, I tried everything I can. It failed ultimately, but I tried. And I dusted myself down and ultimately we managed to get that event on. We managed to raise quite a lot of money and things changed. It didn't raise what I wanted it to raise, but ultimately Audrey's son Luca said to me he was really proud of me. My wife said that she was really pleased that she could move on. Yeah. And everyone that turned up and supported that event had the best time ever. So no one needed to know what happened. And if I could go back in time, I would never change that. Because when things go wrong or when I'm having a bad day and you go, oh, do you know what? Everything's going to go to tits. Like, that's it. Yeah. Life's over. I go, that's nothing compared to how I felt that night. Yeah. So when I said to you at the beginning about something bad turns into something good, the good thing that came out of that situation is that it's made me stronger. It's made me stronger, and it's made me be able to deal with problems in a way that I never would have done before that event happened.
Yeah, so probably a bonus point would be resilience as well. Be resilient. Life of an entrepreneur is tough, right?
Yeah, it's really tough.
Mate,
life's tough. Life's tough for everyone.
Yeah, it's tough. So
and you add in running a business.
Enjoy the best bits. Like, you have to be a special kind of psycho to run your own business because it is crazy sometimes, and I totally get it. And I had periods last year where I would have bad news or I'd be anxious about bad news and it wouldn't even be a big thing like that, and I'd feel so low. Yeah. Then you get to the point of saying, well, you can't continue, because this entrepreneurialism is a marathon. It's not a sprint for me, because I want to have something to pass down to my kids. You have to be able to ride with it and have processes for it. So being resilient and understanding when you start your business, if you're watching or if you're listening, that it's not going to be easy. And what are you going to do when things are really tough? Who are you going to turn to? What are your processes? And how are you going to learn from it? But if you have got a couple of things out there, one is don't, like Tony Robbins talks about, trade your expectations for appreciation. Yeah. Don't have expectations of people. That will really F you up. And don't stress over things you can't control. What can you control? Okay, I can control getting back on the phone, trying to get money in, being creative. Can we do it a different way? Mate, I said we'd run an hour, and I think we've run about an hour and 45 to 2 hours now.
Yeah,
but it's been so good. Honestly, I'm so happy I had you on as the first in-person for season 2.
Amazing. Thanks for having me.
Just total flowing conversation. You are a great talker. Some really great stories, some brilliant insights that people can take away, be inspired by, but actually actionable stuff that they can take into their business, which today's episode, it's not technical stuff. It's mindset stuff. It's approach to team stuff. It's getting help stuff. It's observing and mental stuff. It's things that you can do without any cost investment or any technical expertise. It'll make a massive difference to your business. Yeah. So people can hopefully see a bit more success in their own business and emulate some of the things that you're doing. So I just want to say thank you for joining me. Thanks for coming down.
Welcome.
Great episode. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to talk about? I'd definitely like to have you back on though. So
I think there's so many more things that we can speak about. Like you said, we haven't touched on the football, but that's a personal thing. But there's lots of synergies in business and in comparing life to football. But I think we've covered everything in the sort of the day-to-day stuff. And probably my motivation and my inspiration. I've sort of spoken a little bit about how I've admitted defeat in the fact that I can't switch off.
Yeah.
But that is what drives me. The minute that I probably put my feet up and rest on my laurels is probably when I'll start to fail.
Yeah.
But all I can say is that my goal is one day to be able to stop, switch off, and look back and be proud of what I've achieved.
Yeah,
and hopefully the same feeling for all the people that have worked with me.
Yeah, it's an awesome goal to have, and something that you're working towards, and you can enjoy the process. Definitely have you back on, mate.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Thanks for coming on. How can people find Murwalls? How can they get
so
more
we're on all the
information?
social media platforms.
Yeah.
But it's
MURWALLS. Yeah.
LLS,
Yeah.
Murwalls,
Yeah.
Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all of them.
So some of the stuff we spoke about, the videos, the Liverpool stuff, they
so
can go back
YouTube,
through your
YouTube's
Instagram,
got some brilliant videos on there. There's a Murals channel on there that's got some great stuff. And
nice.
The frustrating thing about these social media channels is that, it's great that your new stuff goes on there, but obviously some of the older stuff that we're really proud of kind of gets further down the line. But you can kind of see from the beginning 2019 how the business has evolved.
Awesome.
Through looking for them channels.
Okay, and if people want to get in touch with you, they can just do it through that?
Yeah, absolutely. DM us and someone will always get back. It might take a while sometimes when we're extra busy, but always happy to hear from people and speak to people that want help, advice in the industry, or if someone wants some work being done, we're always happy to talk to people.
Awesome. All right. Thank you guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you in the next episode.